Hi everyone, and welcome to our daily show, The Big Story, where we discuss the hottest topics of the day right here in the heart of the newsroom. My name is Alyssa Wu, and I'm coming to you live from the Straits Times. We are streaming live right now on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, do subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to be notified whenever we go live. I'll be joined very shortly by my newsroom colleagues, where we'll discuss the topics that got you talking today. For our first segment, it's a report released about the Cross Island line construction. So there was a major study released today by the Land Transport Authority, where they studied the potential impact of construction works on the surrounding environment. They came up with two options. The MRT line can either run under the Central Catchment Nature Reserve or go around it. To talk more about this study and the new Cross Island line, I have senior transport correspondent Chris Tan with me. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
So can you tell us a little bit more for viewers who are not familiar with the line and also this study, why did the LTA commission this study?
I think when the line was first announced 6 years ago, it didn't appear to us that there was a second option. The map that they showed us showed the line going through the nature reserve. And when that story came, when that story broke, I think the nature groups became quite concerned and became quite vocal, and hence the LTA came up with an alternative option that kind of skirts around the nature reserve. But then the residents living around there, where the skirting option is, also voiced their concerns. They say our home's going to be acquired, is there going to be noise, is there going to be dust? And that is why the LTA decided to do a comprehensive environmental assessment to see the options, the pros and cons of each option.
So you were at the press conference today when they released the study. So which option do you think is the most feasible? And do you see any pros and cons?
I think the thing that came out of the press conference today was that the bottom line was that both options were feasible. And both options were feasible with minimal impact on either the flora and fauna, and on the other end, on the residents. And I suppose that's good news. But if you ask me, I think there could be perhaps an option 2A, right? The skirting option to me is neither here nor there, because it really just skirts the nature reserve around its border. And in that area, you don't serve any residents. There are not very huge population centers around there. There are some small towns, small pockets of residents, but not a huge pool. So if you just move the line a little south and straighten the skirting alignment, I think you have the possibility of serving a future town, which is the Bukit Brown development. That's slated for development in 2040, around there, and that would be just 10 years after, or less than 10 years after the Cross Island line is built.
That's right. So the first phase is meant to be completed, well, they say, by 2029, and then the rest of the line should be done like early
2030s. And this town is not a small town; it's a sizable town, right? It's bigger than Serangoon. So right now, the only line that serves there is the Circle line. There's a Bukit Brown box station there. It's not been built. It's a provision for a station there. But the Circle line is an orbital line. It's a very circuitous route. It doesn't have, it's also a very light, medium load kind of trains, 3-car trains. Whereas the Cross Island line is a major line connecting from Changi all the way to Tuas. And it's got 8 cars, right? And speedier, higher frequency and all that, high capacity.
So certainly you've studied the map, and I hope the LTA will take your Chris option into consideration. So do you think the line, so you mentioned that if they pull the line out a little bit, make it a bit straighter, would that be too close to any other lines, and how would that affect our underground structure? Because some people are worried that we're building so many things underground, will our city just cave in on itself?
All right. So the only line that's quite close to this option, if you like, option 2A, would be the Circle line. And it's nothing new. We have built lines and tunneled through live operating lines before. In some cases, just meters away, right? Engineering capability advances with time, and we are doing more and more amazing things. And I think if we had the will, we would be able to do it. There's nothing to say that we can't have 2 or more lines serving a same precinct.
For example, moving things underground, such as the MCE, you brought up.
Yes. I mean, moving a highway under the sea just to free up a parcel of land for development, as in the case of the Marina Coastal Expressway. I mean, that is a prime example of what we can do if we put our minds to it.
And I understand you'll be writing a commentary based on this, which will be out online tonight, if possible, or in the papers tomorrow.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much, Chris.
Sure, welcome.
Now, if you would like to read the report, you can head on to LTA's website. It will be up there for about a week or so, and the public can give their feedback to the authority. Now, for our next segment, it was another weekend of protests in Hong Kong, where anti-government protesters gathered at various MTR stations. The protesters also disrupted operations at Hong Kong's International Airport. To discuss more about what happened over the weekend, I have regional correspondent Elizabeth with me. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
So there was a weekend of peaceful protests. Unfortunately, it became violent again. Why is that so? Why is that happening?
Well, I think, firstly, when we look at why the protests became the way they were, is because on Thursday, the police had banned this march. The organizers, the Civil Human Rights Front, which is the biggest protest the organizers of some of the biggest protests in Hong Kong thus far, they had actually applied to have a march on Saturday, but then the police said that they banned it. So why did they want to have a march on Saturday? Because that was August 31st, and 5 years ago, this was the date that Chinese government decided to try and introduce new rules on how the leader of Hong Kong, the chief executive, will be chosen. Of course, Hong Kongers weren't happy about it, because what was going to happen was that the CE would be chosen by a very small group of people, and mostly very pro-Beijing, and Hong Kongers felt that they should have a right to choose their own leader. So everyone was very unhappy, and this sparked off what we now know as the Umbrella Movement, which for 79 days they were occupying the middle of Admiralty, and of course that started a whole new democracy movement in Hong Kong, and which brings us to where we are today. Sorry, that's a lot of background. So the reason why we saw what we saw on Saturday was that they weren't just at the MTR stations. The MTR stations came from were much later in the day. Earlier they were in Central, around the government headquarters, around the Legislative Council, and that's where they were marching, and some of them decided to occupy the roads there. And so this is also where we saw the police bring out their new weapon, which is water cannon. I suppose we can call that weapon, which is the water cannon, and we saw it spraying some blue dye, which is part of their riot control methods. So I hope that answers your question.
But also the protesters have been violent, using violent means as well. They've been throwing petrol bombs.
Well, the thing is that they get very triggered whenever the police does not approve of a rally for the weekend, because they feel that it gives the police an excuse to arrest them for illegal assembly. So that triggers them to do all sorts of things, and it really pushes them to do things like throw petrol bombs, and also to behave in a rather angry manner. And of course, as we all saw in the reports, warning shots had been fired. 2 warning shots were fired by police as well, because a couple of weeks back, police admitted that they were now using undercover officers to go in with the protesters to try and arrest the more radical ones. And what happened was in Victoria Park, which is in Causeway Bay. Apparently, some of these officers had been spotted, and the protesters were now surrounding them and trying to attack them. So these officers now got felt that their lives were being threatened, and that's when they fired 2 warning shots, because they felt like protesters were going to attack them with petrol bombs and with other sharp objects. Yeah. So that's what. Yeah.
And for a police force of about 30,000 against a few million residents in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I suppose because Hong Kong has a population of 7 million people, and when you have a police force that is 30,000, of course we are not seeing the full 30,000 coming onto the streets week after week to try and bring calm to the situation, and also obviously they are being pushed to the front because this is a political crisis, but the government is trying to push the police to try and take care of it. I know some people have been asking, why hasn't a curfew been imposed on Hong Kong yet? But I think this is something that is really very close to the military option. It is almost saying that that has come to the point of no return, because when you have a police force of 30,000 trying to enforce a curfew in a city of 7 million, it is simply impossible. Historically, whenever any city or any place tries to impose curfews, or generally it comes along with martial law. So if this were to happen in Hong Kong, realistically the police won't be able to do it by themselves. And what does this leave us? Which means that the military has to be brought in, and I think no one wants to go there.
But what would be the tipping point? Because we've seen the violence just escalating.
Yeah. I know that is $1 million question. Now, what would the tipping point be? I think for a while the consensus was the fact that maybe there is loss of life on either side. But of course, we hope that would not come to it. I think we spoke about this earlier, and I said that basically Hong Kong is now a tinderbox because tensions are very high on both sides. How this is going to be resolved, obviously we can't just keep using force to try and resolve what is a political problem. So there has to be a compromise on both sides.
Now, I do have a last question for you. What is happening now, or what is going to happen now that the student protesters are boycotting their classes? I mean,
well, the students have been a very core part of this entire movement. That is something that we cannot deny. And in the beginning, everyone thought that, okay, maybe in September when everyone goes back to school, maybe the protest will slowly die down and it sort of lose momentum. But of course, as we've seen from today, they are a bunch of them are going back to school. It's just that in school they are boycotting their classes and they are gathering in parts of the school to have these sort of rallies. And earlier this morning there was an intergovernment press conference, and the Education Secretary has said that they will try to make school as normal as possible for other students who are still going to classes. Right now, as we speak, there are several rallies that are going on across Hong Kong where students are gathering just to show support for each other and to take part in the strike and boycott of classes. Whether or not they can sustain the momentum, because education is important, it remains to be seen. But of course, how today develops, I think viewers can go onto our website because we have a rolling report. Our Hong Kong correspondent Claire is on the ground and she'll be bringing us the latest updates.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you.
So like Elizabeth mentioned, for up to the minute updates, you can log on to straitstimes.com. You can also check out our correspondents' Twitter pages. For Liz Twitter, it's @LizLaw, and for Claire Huang, it's @ClaireHuangINC. Now on to our third segment. Have you ever bought something that's from a store's closing down sale, only to realize that the store is still in business more than a year later or longer? Hopefully it will be a thing of the past for such stores to hoodwink customers if such stores are to follow a new set of guidelines set by the Competition and Consumer Commission of Singapore, otherwise known as CCCS. To talk more about this, I have Yuan Xin with me. Hi, Yuan Xin.
Hi.
Okay. So you wrote this story about closing down sales, how these sales never end.
Yeah.
There are also company sales where it's perpetually opening sale.
Yeah.
Well, these have been happening for years now. So why is it only now that CCCS is setting up these guidelines?
Yeah, actually I'm curious about this as well, because I actually asked them why are they doing this now, but I don't think there was a response. But definitely there's interest in these guidelines because there has been online chatter about this phenomenon for I guess like at least the past 5 years or so, because it's such a common sight. And this topic is definitely in the spotlight because just last month, the Commission took action against a retailer for the first time for having such misleading promotions. So it involved a restaurant called Charcoal Thai. So basically they've been having signs that say, oh, this promotion is ending soon, 50% off. But when they went back to check again, you can tell that the promotions have been ongoing for at least 2 years. Yeah, so for the guidelines, I think what we can expect to see, even though details have not been released yet, it may include information about, if you have a promotion, you have to clearly state when is an end date. And I think as a retailer, you have to abide by that end date. So if you say that, this sale is ending by the end of this month, it has to be that in actual practice. Or, when you talk about offers of free products, for instance, if you sign up for a subscription or for like a package or something, you have to make sure that, this free product will actually be on offer. Yep.
In this case where Charcoal Thai offered discounts for steamboat items, it's in the interest of, it's for the benefit of the customers, no? Because they get to enjoy it for a longer period of time.
Yeah, you can see it from that way, in the way that, as a consumer, you may not necessarily lose out. But at the same time, the Commission's rationale is that it actually hurts competition, right? Because, there are so many steamboat restaurants out there, and you may be attracted to dine at this restaurant because it has this promotion that is ongoing forever. So it's actually not fair to other restaurants out there, right? Because they are abiding by the rules, but yet they don't get to have this benefit of extra visibility through its promotions and sales and so on. Yeah.
And this is it will obviously be different if it's a store where that's selling clothes, for example, right? So if they miss out the customers into getting something because they think that, okay, this item is going to go out of stock very soon, or the store is going to close. So it creates this false sense of urgency for the customers, right?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the facts and each individual case. So I think one case that many consumers have been asking the authorities about would be the bargain stores that I've highlighted in that story. So value dollar stores, ABC bargain centers, these are discount stores that you see all the time, and they are very well known for having signs that declare, fire sale, everything must go. It's like plastered all over their shops. And I think the main beef that consumers have with this is that it makes it seem as if the store is closing down, especially with the phrase that says everything must close. But they come back, 1 or 2 years later, and they realize that the store is still there, right? But I think in the defense of the owner, he was saying that, the sign fire sale does not necessarily mean that a store is closing down. It just means that the store is selling things at a deep discount.
It's a hot sale.
Yeah, and if you really check their products, they are indeed cheaper than what you can get at supermarkets and so on. And even that phrase, everything must go, he was saying that, because the discount stores import different stocks of things, and they are all available on a very limited basis. So essentially you can say that, it's having a sale every single day, and all its products are always limited in quantity. So there are various ways in which you can look at it, and I think that I guess the guidelines from the Commission will help to clarify, what can be done to make things clearer to consumers, without misleading them into thinking that something is on limited, that it has limited availability. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, who do you think are the most affected, negatively affected by these marketing tactics?
Yeah, I think, obviously if you are a discerning consumer, and let's say you live in the area and you always walk past this shop, definitely the effect of such misleading claims will not have that much of an effect on you because you are familiar with it. So I guess it would most likely impact somebody who is not so familiar with the store and the brand, and the fact that if a sale has really impacted their purchasing decisions, you can say that that's not fair to them. And it also affects other stores in the same industry. So in terms of competition, right? So they get they're a bit on the losing end for this. But I think in the long term, if you're a store that employs such misleading sales tactics, it also hurts your brand in the long term, because people feel that I can't trust you anymore, right? Like everything that you say you claim that closing down, or you claim that there's a sale, but you never seem to uphold that promise. So that can be something damaging for the store in the long term.
So what do you think consumers can do to protect themselves, or at least maybe make themselves more aware about such things?
So I think it's important to do your homework. So let's say if you see a sign about a sale and so on, you can check with the manager or the shop assistants and ask them, so how long is this sale? How long has this sale been ongoing? Is this a genuine sale, for instance? You can also do price comparisons online, and I think that at the end of the day, you can look at prices online, and if you really want the best deal, making your own comparison, that can be something that works the best for you.
My favorite tactic to use is, if I don't need it, I just don't buy it.
And then you can save money.
But yeah. Thank you so much, Yensin.
Thank you.
Now, those were our top stories for today, and thank you for joining us. For more news and videos, do log on to straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Melissa. For more big stories, join us again, same time, same place tomorrow.